Hello witches, diviners, and cosmic beings. I'm your host Laurel, and welcome to the Simply Witchery podcast, where we discuss witchery, ritual, the divine, and magic of all sorts. This week, I'm talking all about rituals. I'll go into more detail about my personal daily rituals, talk about ritual and mental illness, and give tips on how you can make the most mundane moments magical. Then we'll step into tarot time, where I do a reading for the collective and answer a listener question. This week I'm also adding in a new segment called Magic and Me, where I talk about the magic I've been getting up to since the last episode. Stay tuned! Before we get started this week, I want to let you know that this episode has a trigger warning for mentions of self-harm and suicidal thought. I mention them, but I don't go into any kind of detail. There will be timestamps in the episode description so that you can skip them if you'd like to. Welcome, beautiful souls, to this week's episode of the Simply Witchery podcast. During the planning phase of this podcast, I reached out to my wonderful Instagram fam to see if anyone had anything they were interested in listening to me discuss, and a lovely follower suggested that I talk about my daily rituals. And after the last episode, in which I talked all about how I worship deity through ritual, I figured this would be a great time to go over a typical day, week, and month, and what that looks like magically for me. I do want to give you a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm going to talk about what a day where I accomplish 100% of what I want to do, and I want you to know that not every day looks like this for me. I've been slowly working my way up to this point, and I'd say about 25% of my days are like this. Some days I hit 75% of everything I want to do. Some days I'm at 50, and there are some days where I hit a big fat 0, and no one is perfect all the time, least of all me. So don't let this make you feel like you have to do more in your own practice than you're capable of. Doing your best is doing enough. And if you're like me, anxiety, depression, and imposter syndrome will do whatever it can to make you believe that you're not doing your best. But you probably are, and I want you to know that. For me, ritual and mental illness are very intertwined. I use ritual to help me manage my mental illness, and I want to talk a little bit about how that started and how it has evolved over time. When I first started my witchy practice, I was low in just about every area of my life, but especially in my mental health. I hated myself. I was trapped in a pit of despair and pain, and I wanted to die, but I didn't want to hurt the people I loved, so I was willing to suffer for the rest of my life. And the worst part of it all was that I didn't have any hope that anything would ever change. I really thought that I would suffer for the rest of my natural life. It was awful, and I felt like that for years, and nothing really happened to make me change things. But slowly, I started paying attention to my feelings and what triggered my anxiety and depression. And once I understood myself, I could keep myself out of situations that triggered me and start dealing with the trigger points themselves because they didn't seem as scary anymore. Ritual was a big part of managing triggers and unwinding the causes of them. Having a sacred task and being able to trust in my own strength to accomplish them really allowed me to take away the power from them. Without the ritual, healing would have taken me much longer if it had happened at all. My rituals started by me having to literally write down every single thing that I needed to do in my day. Like, I had to write down to remember to brush my teeth, to remember to eat, to remember to drink anything. I was not in a place where I was capable of taking care of myself at the time. That's how ritual really started, was by me tracking just basic self-care, and then it expanded to include my pagan practice and my more complex self-care, and then it evolved from there. So let's talk about what my daily rituals look like now. On weekdays, I wake up and I'll post my daily oracle reading on Instagram and let the Twitterverse know it's up. Then I'll spend some time on social media just sharing things I like and catching up on the people that I follow that I might have missed the day before or while I was sleeping. Once that's done, I get out of bed, I grab a tarot deck, and I prep the other two Instagram posts for the day. Then I'll prep the daily reading for the next morning. Any exercises I do to strengthen my intuition, like doing readings for myself or for the collective, is an offering to Persephone. Once pictures are taken and captions are written, I'll stretch a little as an offering to Frigg. Then I grab my journal box and start to journal. The journal that I call my stream of consciousness journal is always first. In this journal, I write whatever comes to mind without judging it, just to get thoughts and emotions out of my head so that I can better process them. Then, depending on the day and whatever I have time for, I will journal in any number of the following journals: manifestation, tarot readings, tarot spread development, positivity and gratitude, dream, prayer, business, deity, or my shadow work journal. As you can tell by the sheer volume of journals that I keep, I'm a big believer in writing things down. I find it helps a lot with managing my anxiety, working out any situations I'm struggling with, understanding myself and what I want. It's also a big part of manifesting the things I want in life, and it helps me communicate with my deities, and it helps me with 100 other things. I could talk forever about journaling, but I'm going to move on now. So after journaling is complete, I take my shower for the day, which is always a cleansing ritual for me. It's an opportunity to process the things that come up during my journaling and to clean away any negativity and to release anything that I need to let go of. After my shower, it's time for my beauty routine, in which all the products I use are magically boosted somehow. I most often use sigils for glamour and protection. Most of this is an offering to Hephaestus, who I dedicate basically all of my self-care to. Some of the glamour magic is an offering for Aphrodite. Anything that boosts my power and confidence is for her. Once I'm done in the bathroom, it's time for my daily offerings. I talked about what and why I offer to my deities daily in the last episode, so you can go listen to that if you're interested. I'll also be posting a video of me doing the offerings on Instagram if you're interested. Once those offerings are set, I'll do my reading/studying for the day, writing down any notes I feel called to along the way. This is my main daily offering to Aries and or Odin, depending on what I'm doing. When I study with the intention of learning about something new, that is dedicated to Odin, and studying with the intention of learning something about myself is for Aries. Lastly, I choose any deity rings I might want to wear that day, and then spend some time enjoying music outside of the music I always offer to Apollo as a way to kind of reset and relax before I go to work. After work, I spend some time meditating, and then I go on a walk to the wetlands near my house to connect with my spirit guide and then with nature and to disconnect from technology for a while. I have a really bad habit of never putting my phone down. It's really important that I have dedicated time where I leave my phone and get out of the house for a little bit. If study time didn't happen in the morning, I will often do it after my walk or work on an art project, my grimoire, and more recently, this podcast. Art projects are another offering for Hephaestus, and who I offer grimoire work to depends on what I'm working on. My nighttime ritual relies solely on the magic that is always cooking in my bathroom. By the time I get to the evening, I am exhausted. So those magicked beauty products that I talked about before are really key to keeping that nighttime ritual magical. There isn't too much difference between my weekdays and my weekend. I don't have to prep posts on the weekend because I don't post on Saturdays or Sundays. I try to disconnect from social media a bit more. If I'm going to do a blot or a feast or any spell work aside from daily stuff, weekends are probably when that will happen as well. On a weekly basis, Thursday nights are my ritual self-care nights. I am obsessed with D&D, and I am particularly obsessed with a web series called Critical Role. It airs on Thursday nights, and it's just 4 glorious hours of incredibly talented voice actors playing Dungeons and Dragons. I'll have a special snack, most often it's ice cream, and just shut my brain off until I wake up on Friday. If I'm feeling extra worn out, I'll do this in my bathtub because bath rituals are amazing. It's simple, but it's so important for me to keep it locked in my schedule. I'd lose my mind without it. I also water my window garden once a week as part of my offerings. I'll check my moon water stock to see if I need to make some over the weekend, and I do mundane and spiritual cleansing when it's needed. I struggle a lot to do anything on a monthly basis. Both full moons and new moons just kick my ass. New moons make me sleep way more than usual, and full moons are just exhausting. My mind and my spirit are begging for sleep because I'm exhausted. My body often feels like a live wire, and it makes sleeping basically impossible. So it's really difficult to do any ritual or magic when I feel completely drained and unable to rest at the same time. And I've just kind of given up trying. It's just the way things are for me, and I've come to accept it. So simple self-care is really all I have the energy for during the full moon and new moon. So for me, the waxing and waning moons are really something I've started to connect with recently. Moon magic and holidays are pretty new to my practice. I started celebrating them seriously this year. It's been really lovely so far to free myself from expectations when it comes to moon magic and to be picking up more traditional magic in the way I honor the wheel of the year. I'm still really simplistic in my celebrations. I don't do anything super special, but I wouldn't be simply witchery if my magic wasn't simple. So I'm alright with it. Alright, now that I've gone through all my rituals, let's talk a little bit about making magic in our every moment. Cleaning my bathroom is as much of a ritual as offering a feast to the Hellenic deities is. I truly believe that everything you do can have magic in it if you feel so inclined to put intent behind it. As a witch, your every breath is magic, and you can make everything you do magic if you create the habits and the framework and the rituals behind it. Cleaning becomes cleansing. Watching a documentary becomes an offering. Cooking with intent makes your food magical. Everything has magic in it. A great way to make your moments magical is to put up the bones of ritual when you have an abundance of energy, so that when you don't have a lot of energy, you'll have to give less. For example, I talked about this a little before. I don't have energy at the end of the day, so my bathroom is always having magic cooking in it that's independent from me, so that I don't have to put as much effort into magic at night. I also like to tie magic into the elements and give them a trigger point so that all I have to do when I want to activate a spell is to reach for it and flip the metaphysical switch, so to speak. It's things like this that can keep magic in your every moment when you're low on energy, which I think is when we need magic the most. Magic can be all around you. It takes work and trial and error, but once you find that sweet spot, it's there to stay. You might drift away, but you will always have the space to come back to it, because even when you have one of those 0 days or weeks or months or years of 0 days, the magic is always within you, and it can never truly be gone. welcome to Magic and Me. In this segment, I want to talk about elemental balance. As I've said before, the elements are really important to me, and through my study of Kabbalah, it was called to my attention that while I am very connected to fire and water, I am not very connected to earth and air, which I think is really interesting because my natal chart is earth dominant. Because of this realization, I've been spending a lot of time in meditation recently, especially on the sphere of Malkuth and its temple. In my meetings with the angel Sandalphon, I was given the idea to create a spell for elemental balance. While I was writing up the spell and gathering materials, I decided that I wanted the spell to allow me to be able to use the components as talismans in meditation. So this led me to doing what is essentially 4 small jar spells, one for each element, and we're not including spirit in this case. So I wanted to share this spell with all of you. For the spell, you'd need 4 small vials, jars, or containers of some kind. I used some really tiny ones because I didn't want these to be huge. You will also need dirt, cascarilla, or eggshell powder, moon water, or just water depending on your preference, a small candle, I used a birthday candle, and a tea light. To perform the spell, I first lit the tea light so that the wax would be melted by the time I need it, because we're going to use the tea light to seal the jars once we've filled them and given them power. In one, I placed the water, one the dirt and cascarilla powder, one with the birthday candle, and one I just blew my breath into. I sealed each of these vials with the wax, and then I tethered each vial to its element through visualization and meditation. Really simple, and that was all that I did. These talismans have been really useful in balancing out the elements within myself. During meditation, they have really helped me connect to the element I want to focus on. I've been carrying the earth and air vials with me when I feel like I need to, so usually that's just when I leave the house. I found myself feeling more grounded and able to get in touch with logic a lot easier than I have before, and I'm really starting to feel more balanced out. I think it's normal and natural to have elements that you are more attuned to, but I'm not totally disconnected from any element like I was before, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. When I'm not meditating with or carrying the vials with me, they've become pieces of my altar as representations of the 4 elements, and I'm excited to use them in spell work. I think they'll be great representations of the elements when I want to tether elemental power to things, which I do all the time in my spell work. It's how I power most of my spells. Here's a great way to modify this spell into something a little less obviously magical for you secret witches out there. Straws make really great waterproof envelopes, so you can melt one end with a lighter to seal it and fill it with whatever you want to, and then seal the other end. Be really careful and practice fire safety here and don't burn yourself or anything else. The straws are probably a lot easier to keep hidden if you need to, and it's not a weird jar full of dirt if somebody finds it. So let me know if you try this spell out, or if you make any modifications to it yourself. I'd love to see and hear what you do. Alright everybody, welcome to the Tarot Corner. We'll start with the reading for the collective, and then we'll do the listener question. This week I was called to pull 6 cards from the Cosmos Tarot for the collective. I pulled the Hermit, the Queen of Fire, the 3 of Water, Justice, 8 of Air, and 10 of Fire. The Hermit in this deck depicts a white dog that is nearly as tall as the tree behind it. The dog has a ring looped through one ear, its eyes are closed, and green circlets loop around its neck and tail. On its back is a green saddle with a woman sitting in it. The woman holds a small white bird in her hand. The Queen of Fire depicts a woman with her child in the deep black rolling waves of the ocean. Only their faces are above the waves, and they are both oddly peaceful in what seems to be such a dire situation. Two creatures swim in the water around the pair. One holds on to the woman's hair, and the other looks into her face. The Three of Water depicts a unicorn in an 80s power suit. It has long, flowing blonde hair and wears teal earrings, headband, and eye makeup. Its suit is pink, and in the background, another perspective on the unicorn's face can be seen. Justice is a person in white robes holding an urn. Water bursts from the urn, surrounding them. Behind the robed figure is a large purple bird with wings partially spread, sheltering its companion. There are clouds and the colors of the setting sun behind the pair. The Eight of Air is a picture of a hot pink fox that is surrounded by shrubbery. In its jaws is a distressed pastel pink bird. The fox steps on an arrow, breaking it in two. Finally, the Ten of Fire shows us a woman in a white dress, embroidered with golden geometric designs. One hand is extended toward an open archway, out of which fly black birds that she has released from a golden cage. The cards come in threes this week. The Hermit, the Queen of Fire, and the Three of Water come to speak to the internal journey each member of the collective faces this week. We must examine our worth as people and appreciate our individuality that keeps the whole thriving. Differences of opinion and experience should be celebrated and embraced and be a point of pride for us. Validating someone else does not invalidate you or your beliefs. There is success and space enough for the individual within the collective, and it is our differences that make us strong. The next trio is Justice, Eight of Air, and Ten of Fire. They speak to the externalization of the internal adjustments that the first trio advises us to make. Show others, specifically those that you disagree with, that you will stand up for their right to believe what they believe as long as it does not harm another, and that you will take specific action to protect that right. I feel called to stress that differences of opinion are not the same as fundamental beliefs. The cards are not asking you to accept or embrace those whose beliefs harm another life, as racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia do. The cards are charging us to embrace each other and support each other so that the collective can rise as one against oppressors and bigots. The energy reminds me of the Martin Luther King Jr. quote about the white moderates. He wrote, "I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice." The cards are telling us that we must not be moderate. We must love one another and take action to protect one another. The change must come first within our minds and then be shown in our choices and our actions. I hope these words inspire you to action and to help guide you to your highest good, where peace and blessings flow to you. Now it is time for this week's listener reading. The question is, how am I performing in the eyes of my deity? I felt called to pull 3 cards from the Wildwood Tarot. I pulled the Pole Star, the Archer, and the Six of Vessels. The Pole Star depicts a human figure walking down a path and into a dense forest. There is a glow of bright yellow light around them. Above the trees in the sky glows a large star. Smaller stars orbit around it, and they show the figure the way. The Archer is a forest-dwelling hunter with her bow nocked and ready to shoot. She wears green and brown armor, and an animal tooth on a chain is around her neck. 2 white shaggy dogs attend her in the background, waiting to go and retrieve her kill. The Six of Vessels shows a hill where trees grow tall, stretching into the sky. Water pours down a small fall about halfway down the hill into a pool. 2 otters drink at the banks of the water. 6 lily flowers float in the pool in the foreground of the image. These cards have a united message for you. They want you to know that your deity is pleased with the progress you're making. You are beginning to achieve the balance that they want you to maintain, and are excited to move forward as you continue to grow and walk down the path you're on. Be sure to continue to cultivate balance and to keep hope in your heart, and the things you seek will come to you. That's what the cards have for you today. I hope this reading helps you. Thank you for sending in your question. It was my pleasure to read for you. Here we are at the end of this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and ratings and reviews would be greatly appreciated. If you would like a transcript of the episode, please visit our blog at simplywitchery.wixsite.com/home. You can find daily oracle readings, magical tips, and spiritual musings at Simply Witchery on Instagram and Twitter. Feel free to come over and ask me any questions you may have about the episode as well. If you'd like to receive a reading for yourself on a future episode, send your question to simplywitchery@gmail.com. The music in this episode is Thingamajig by Audionautics. Love and light to each and every one of you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!